Good morning. Yes, great to be with you on this Wednesday. You are with George at Growth Point, growing as you are going through life. And we've been speaking about deception. And today, deception, man sin too great for God to forgive. This is how the enemy deceives. You see, sometimes we fall so far into the things of this world that we think God cannot touch us. Now, again, there is no place to hide from God. Come on, no matter where you go, the psalmist writes, he says you can try and hide from God, but there is no place to hide from God. God sees all, God knows exactly where you are. God knows exactly what you're coming through. God knows exactly what you are going through. God knows exactly what you are going to go through. This is our God. He knows all, and He knows you. He even knows the amount of hairs upon your head. Come on, this is the greatness of the God that we serve. Now, let me say to you this, there is no sin too small, and there is no sin too great for God to forgive. You know why? Because of Jesus. He went to the cross. He took all that sin that you would ever commit in your life and He placed it upon Himself. All I have to do is accept Him and accept that, what He did for me upon the cross of Calvary. And yet we find it so difficult to do. Now, just recently, I watched a documentary on Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Go and Google it. You can do it. You can watch it on Netflix. There is Netflix. There is a documentary, even a movie made of him, and you will see what happened to this young man. Again, what he had fallen into and how he had fallen into this. He became a serial killer who killed 17 men, 17 men. He killed them, had sex with them, dismembered their bodies, ate them, put their body parts in the fridge and kept it in his fridge. But listen to this, during his time in prison, eventually they catch up with him and he's in prison. And while in prison, he is ministered to by the chaplain. The chaplain of the prison ministered to him, and as he ministered to him, he got to the point where he accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of his life, even to the point of being baptized. Now, during his time in prison, there was a religious prisoner, one of his inmates. He was religious as well, and he too was there in for murder. But he thought in his own mind that Jeffrey Dahmer was too sinful for God to forgive. So what did he do? He thought, well, he'll bring the judgment of God upon him by killing him. So he attacks Jeffrey Dahmer and he kills him. Now, many Christians have debated his salvation, and they too believe that he could not be saved because of the grossness of the sin that he had committed. Isn't it our human nature thinking and reasoning? Is it not a God way of thinking? You see, sometimes again, we have this nature, well, you know what? God can't forgive. Even possibly you've watched that documentary. Possibly you've come to the conclusion that it was just a false salvation. I don't know. I don't know how true his salvation was. But when I watched the documentary and I watched the episode, it seemed like to me that he was sincere in that what had taken place in his life by accepting Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. But again, as I said, so many Christians have debated, still debate, even after watching this, say, no, God cannot give him his sin too gruesome. Now I can think, if I was one of the family members of that person that he killed and what he did to possibly a relative or even a son of mine, I most probably would too feel within my heart. Because again, of my nature, we have this nature to judge, not so? We are quick to judge. But listen again to what Romans 5 verse 8 says. It says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You can't measure sin. You see, sin cannot be measured. Sin is sin, and sin crucified Jesus upon the cross. Your sin, my sin, crucified Jesus upon the cross. And again, sometimes we want to measure out sin and say, this sin is bigger than that sin. Now, I don't know what your verdict is regarding Jeffrey Dahmer. Was he too sinful for God to forgive? I don't know. So, it's okay. Sometimes we get to that point in our life. It's okay for God to forgive me, but you know what? God cannot forgive my neighbor. Why? Well, my neighbor is such and such a person. He is so wicked. God can never forgive him. You see, you're never too wicked for God to forgive. Again, we come to that. Our human nature is a fallen nature that has a built-in switch to judge those around us. But again, when we come to understand the fullness and the finished work of the cross of Calvary, we know that sin, no matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, Jesus became that sin on your behalf so that we could find our forgiveness in Him and through Him. By allowing that, by accepting Him now, allowing us back into the presence of God.